Hi, I'm Rachel Mills with the Drawing Skills class. Today we're going to be going over perspective. So when you talk about perspective, today we're going to be talking about perspective in buildings, which is 1 and 2 point perspective, and perspective in landscapes a bit, which we'll be talking about aerial perspective. So we're going to start with buildings. So if you have a horizon line, here is our sky, here is our earth, ground, sun on that. So that would be the line that divides the sky and the earth when you see that. It's not always visible actually. A lot of times our pictures can hide it. We'll have like a horse or something and there's just, you don't see the horizon, but it has to be there if it's a picture in space. If you're doing abstract, less so. So, if you're doing abstract or surreal or any of those other pictures, then less so. Use other types of art styles, less so. So, we have a point on the horizon line, which is our vanishing point. That is where all of our lines converge. So say we have a house. That's our wee rectangle. We'll start with that. Just very, very simply. I would always recommend starting very simply, just because then you can add details and things, and then you can always erase a little bit of what you have and add a bit more complex shapes if you feel like it. So if you look at the vanishing point, all of our lines converge on it because that's where all the lines vanish to. We're sort of making a cube. That sort of idea. So if I do that, that's where I'm going to end my house. And now let's say I want to do wee windows. On this side it's quite straightforward because this is just a square, this is just directly at us. But if we look at this side, less so because it's at this angle. But if we follow the vanishing point, vanishes over there. My vanishing point's a bit big, so it's making it hard to tell where everything actually vanishes to. Then I can decide to make windows and they'll have the right angle. If you also notice, I'm going to make my windows look a bit smaller as I go down. They're just going to be a bit thinner because they're getting a bit smaller. And as you know, when something gets further away from you, it's going to look smaller. So there we are. I'm actually going to make the windows this way. That'll make a bit more sense, I think. Here we are. So, there we go. Okay, I like that a bit better. There we are. So it all kind of vanishes off into this point. So now that we've seen that, you can now make a 1 point perspective house of your own. So you can find a picture of your own that has 1 point perspective, or you can even draw your own house. So now that you have that, I'm going to show you 2 point perspective. 2 point perspective is quite similar. It just answers the question, what happens if this side needs to be at an angle too? So here is one vanishing point, here's 2 vanishing points. That's 2 point perspective, 2 vanishing points. Here's a corner of our house. As you see, it vanishes into it. Oop, that didn't vanish. There we go. And that's where I'll end it. Here we are. And I can do the same thing with windows. And doors if I like as well. A nice big window. So always have to check these things. Even this needs to be at the right angle. There we are. You're going to get thinner and thinner as we go. Yeah. So that's an example of 2-point perspective. That's quite messy, but you get the idea. So now that we've seen that, you can now go out and do a 2-point perspective house. Again, I'm going to show you pictures on screen. You can choose your own. You can even go outside, draw your own house, whatever. So now that we have done our houses and 1 and 2-point perspective, we're going to move on to aerial perspective, and that is our hills and mountains and landscape we're going to be focusing on. Although it still exists even in sort of man-made structures and man-made things, it's just the actual environment that aerial perspective is all about. So I'm actually going to bring out my paints now. If you don't have paints, colour pencils will be absolutely fine. Just any sort of colour, you'll be great. These really intense blue hills. Now most hills and things, because they're so far back a lot of the time, unless you're like right up close to your hill, they're going to be quite a bit of blue. These ones, you can see, are quite blue. They're actually quite a nice sort of purpley blue. You can see them. You can also see that they're quite fuzzy. There's no sort of details and things on them. And that is what makes something look so far back. Because the farther something is away from you, the less sort of details and things you're going to see. So even if maybe in a picture you can see a few more details, sometimes you want to sort of take those details out. At any sort of line I'm going to make it quite fuzzy actually. There we are. That might be a bit intense actually. Here we go. But as you can see, that. So now if we look back at what I have now, done a little bit off camera, you can see I've really blended these up here. There's no really harsh edges. There's a few wee edges, but all in all, they're quite soft and they're blended. The greens sort of blend the blues. There's not a lot of contrast back here. Over here I'm getting a bit more, and I still could do a bit more, and I probably will do a bit more. Where it starts to get a bit more crisp, there's going to be more details. There's going to be more contrast where there's darker areas next to lighter areas versus here where things are a lot more fuzzy. That's because they're further back. So the further something is back from you, the less details there are. You can look at your hand, it's right up close to you, you can see all the teensy little details and creases in it. You put it further back from you, not so much. If you could get it even further back from you, you probably wouldn't be able to see it at all. The same sort of thing is true with the mountains. When they get further back from you like that, you really can't see them at all. Now that you've seen that, you can now draw a mountain of your own. That has aerial perspective, the sort of bluey mountains further back from you. Or you can even, if you have mountains close by, go draw those. So, that's that. Thank you for joining me. Be safe, keep drawing, and I'll see you next week.